World War I, 1915.
Okay, so I want you to imagine it's January 1915, the New Year's just happened, but if you're on the streets of London or Berlin or Paris, there's no celebration.
No, not at all. It's dread. Pure dread.
The war is only 5 months old, just 5 months, but already 1 million soldiers are dead.
It's a number that's, it's almost impossible to even comprehend, even today. You have to remember, everyone in 1914 marched off thinking this was some glorious short adventure.
Home by Christmas.
Exactly. And by January 1915, that illusion is it's shattered. The reality sinks in that this isn't some border skirmish in the Balkans. It's a global slaughterhouse.
And that's really what we want to dig into today, this one year, 1915, because based on everything we've seen, this is the pivot point. This is the year the war stops being a 19th century conflict and becomes something terrifyingly modern.
It's the year of deadlock and, paradoxically, the year of the most horrific innovation. I mean, we're talking starvation blockades, chemical weapons, strategic bombing.
Targeting of civilians on an industrial scale. So let's just quickly set the board. On one side, you've got the Central Powers. So that's Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire.
And they're up against the Allies. Britain, France, Russia, Serbia, Belgium, Japan. It's a true world war.
And the situation is already pretty grim.
Very grim. In the east, the Russians are taking staggering casualties. Austria-Hungary is bogged down fighting Serbia. But the image that really defines the war, the one everyone thinks of, is the Western Front.
The trenches.
The trenches, that 475-mile scar across the land from the English Channel all the way to Switzerland.
And it's so important to understand why they were there. It wasn't really a choice, was it?
Not at all. It was a necessity. It was driven entirely by firepower. Machine guns and modern artillery had made standing up, moving above ground, completely suicidal. So millions of men they dug in.
And they became static, miserable, immovable.
And because they couldn't move the line on the ground, Germany decides to, go over it. They decided to bring the war home to the people in Britain.
This is a huge shift, right? It just blurs that line between a soldier and a civilian.
Completely blurs it. We tend to think of aerial bombing as a World War II thing, but it starts right here, January 1915. Germany uses its Zeppelins to launch the world's first strategic bombing campaign.
And these weren't strikes on, military bases or factories?
No. They hit King's Lynn and Great Yarmouth, just coastal towns in England.
What was the damage?
Damaged a few houses, killed 4 civilians. Now you hear that and think, 4 people. 1 million have died at the front. But the psychological impact was enormous.
It meant the English Channel wasn't a shield anymore?
Precisely. The front line was now potentially anywhere.
And that desperation to break the deadlock on the actual front lines, it leads to something even darker. April 1915, Ypres.
The Second Battle of Ypres. This is a watershed moment. This is where the Germans used chlorine gas on the Western Front for the very first time.
The accounts of this are they're terrifying. This greenish-yellow cloud just drifting across no man's land. What does it actually do to a person?
It's a choking agent. It reacts with the water in your lungs and forms hydrochloric acid.
So you're drowning on dry land.
You're drowning from the inside out. It caused absolute panic. The Allied troops there, they're French colonials and Canadians, they had no protection at all. They just broke and ran, leaving this huge 4-mile gap in the line.
Which is the goal. They broke the line, but they don't capitalize on it. It's this incredible failure of leadership.
It is. It was an experiment, you see. The German High Command was so skeptical that the gas would even work. They didn't have enough reserve troops ready to pour into the gap.
So by the time they realized what they'd done...
The Allies had already plugged the hole. So all they really achieved was showing their hand.
And starting a chemical arms race.
Exactly. The element of surprise was gone forever. Soon, both sides have these crude gas masks. At first, they were literally just urine-soaked rags. And it doesn't break the stalemate. It just makes the stalemate infinitely more miserable.
And the conventional attacks, the big pushes, they were just as bad. You look at the British at Neuve Chapelle.
It's tragic arithmetic. The British and Indian Corps attack. And they suffer 11,000 casualties in 3 days.
Which is what, a quarter of their force?
About a quarter of their force. And for what? For a gain of maybe 1,000 yards of mud. The big takeaway from the Western Front in 1915 is that the defense has all the advantages. Barbed wire and the machine gun always win.
So if the land is locked up, both sides turn to the sea. And this is where that idea of total war really gets cemented. It becomes an economic war.
Britain plays its trump card. the Royal Navy, they set up a distant blockade on Germany. They weren't just stopping warships, they were stopping everything. Food, fertilizer.
They're trying to starve the entire German population.
Into submission, yes. And Germany, which is an import-dependent nation, has to hit back. Their surface fleet is bottled up, so they turn to their new weapon, the U-boat.
The submarine.
And they declare the waters around Britain a war zone. They announce that Allied merchant ships will be sunk without warning.
And that phrase, without warning, that's the whole point of contention.
It is. Under the old rules, you were supposed to stop a ship, let the crew get to the lifeboats, and then sink it. But a submarine is fragile. It can't surface and give a warning.
It'll get rammed or shot at.
Right. So the technology forces a change in morality. Germany decides to shoot first.
Which brings us, inevitably, to the Lusitania, May 1915.
A British passenger liner, sailing from New York, torpedoed off the coast of Ireland, it goes down in just 18 minutes. 11,198 people die.
And crucially, 128 of them were Americans.
And that one number, 128, it changes everything. America was neutral. President Wilson was desperate to stay out of the war, but the sinking of the Lusitania, to the public, it looked like an act of barbarism.
Germany's defense was that the ship was carrying military supplies.
And, to be fair, they were right. The historical record shows it was carrying rifle ammunition. But in the court of public opinion, that didn't matter.
You don't sink a ship full of civilians.
It was a PR catastrophe. It almost dragged the U.S. into the war then and there, and it actually forced Germany to back down for a while.
Right, after they sink another liner, the SS Arabic.
Yes. They realize they're pushing too hard, so they suspend unrestricted submarine warfare, just to keep America out. But the British blockade on Germany, that stays. And the German people are starting to go hungry.
Okay, let's shift focus to the east. Because while the west is this static, muddy hellscape, the Eastern Front is actually moving.
It's a war of movement, but it's mostly movement backwards for the Russians. The Germans launched this huge offensive and just pushed them out of Poland. They march into Warsaw in August. It becomes known as the Great Retreat.
And the Russian casualty numbers are they're off the charts.
In that winter offensive alone, maybe 200,000 men lost. Thousands just surrendered in the freezing conditions. By the end of 1915, Russia has suffered 2 million casualties.
And this disaster leads to this political decision that might be one of the biggest mistakes of the century.
Oh, absolutely. Tsar Nicholas II fires his uncle, the Grand Duke Nicholas.
And takes personal command of the army, which, on the surface, maybe sounds like a strong move, the king leading his troops.
But it was political suicide. Total suicide. Before, if the army lost, you could blame the generals, you could blame the ministers. The Tsar was this remote, sacred figure.
But now
he's guided his own fate, the fate of the monarchy, to the war. Every single defeat, every dead soldier, every food shortage. It's his fault. He's now the face of the failure.
So with the West deadlocked and Russia collapsing, the Allies are desperate for a win anywhere. They need to open a new front.
Which brings us to the Ottoman Empire and the tragedy of Gallipoli.
The logic seemed pretty sound, didn't it?
On paper, knock Turkey out of the war, open a supply line to Russia through the Black Sea, break the stalemate. Winston Churchill was a huge proponent of it.
But the execution was a complete disaster.
From the very start, they try to just force the Dardanelles Straits with battleships, but the ships hit mines, so they decide they have to land troops. And this is where the ANZX, the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, enter the story.
They land in April, and almost immediately, it all goes wrong.
They're pinned down on the beaches. The terrain is a nightmare. Steep cliffs, heavily defended by Turkish troops who fought incredibly well. The Allies couldn't move inland at all.
So it just became another trench stalemate.
Exactly, but a stalemate on a beach with the sea at your back. They spent months there, tormented by the heat, by dysentery, by flies.
Until they finally gave up.
And the only successful part of the entire campaign was the evacuation. They pulled 83,000 men out in secret without a single casualty. But the campaign itself, 250,000 Allied casualties for absolutely nothing.
And while all this is happening at Gallipoli, something even darker is unfolding inside the Ottoman Empire. We have to talk about what began in Armenia in April of 1915.
Yes, this is a heavy but an essential part of the story of this year. The Ottoman government, fearing that the ethnic Armenian population would side with their enemy, Russia, began a systematic campaign.
A campaign of deportation and murder.
That's right. And we aren't talking about combat deaths here. We're talking about forced marches of men, women, and children into the Syrian desert with no food or water. Mass executions. The estimates are that over 1 million people died.
The Allies at the time actually released a statement on this.
They did. They called it a crime against humanity and civilization.
It's important that we note the modern Turkish government disputes the death toll and the use of the word genocide. But the historical consensus, looking at the documents from 1915, is clear. It was the darkest possible expression of total war.
And 1915 really was the year of fallen nations. We see Russia reeling, this tragedy in Armenia, and then the final collapse of Serbia.
Serbia, the country where the whole war started. They'd fought heroically in 1914, but in late 1915, the deck gets stacked against them. Bulgaria decides to join the Central Powers.
So Serbia is caught in a pincer move.
A deadly one, attacked from the north by Germany and Austria, and from the east by Bulgaria. The Serbian army is forced into this horrific retreat through the Albanian mountains in the dead of winter. The losses for Serbia, proportionally, are the worst of any country in the war.
A demographic catastrophe. Just unbelievable suffering.
And at the same time, Italy jumps in. They join the Allies. You'd think that would help, opening another front against Austria-Hungary.
You would think they were promised territory. But the Italian front along the Isonzo River just became the Western Front, but in the mountains. The Austrians held the high ground, and the Italians just launched attack after attack after attack.
The battles of the Isonzo.
First, second, third, fourth. All in 1915. All resulting in enormous casualties for no real gain. It was just another meat grinder.
Before we close out the year, we have to look to the skies one more time. We mentioned the Zeppelins, but 1915 is also the year of the Fokker scourge.
This is the birth of the true fighter plane. Before this, you had pilots literally taking pot shots at each other with pistols. But then the Germans introduced the Fokker Eindecker plane.
And it has a new piece of technology.
A revolutionary piece of technology.
Interrupter gear. So explain that. How do you fire a machine gun through a spinning propeller without shooting your own propeller off?
It's an amazing bit of engineering. It synchronizes the gun with the engine, so the gun literally stops firing for the split second. A propeller blade is in front of the muzzle.
So the pilot just aims the plane itself.
And fires. It turns the airplane into a lethal weapon system. For months, the Allies had no answer. Their planes were just being swatted out of the sky. It gave Germany total air superiority.
So if we just step back and look at the world on December 31st, 1915, it is unbelievably bleak for the Allies.
It's disastrous. Gallipoli failed. Russia is in full retreat. Serbia is crushed. The Western Front is a bloody stalemate. The casualty lists are in the millions.
And yet, and this is what I just can't wrap my head around, there is no serious talk of peace. Why not?
It's the sunk cost fallacy, but on a global geopolitical scale. The losses are so enormous that they make peace impossible.
How does that work?
Well, you can't go to your people after you've lost 500,000 men and say, okay, we're calling it a draw. It was all for nothing. The only way you can justify the dead is to win. The sacrifice demands more sacrifice.
So instead of stopping, they just double down.
They double down. They look at all the failures in 1915, and their conclusion is they just need more. More shells, more gas, more men. They start planning the huge offensives for 1916 Verdun, some convinced that one more giant push will finally end it.
That's a terrifying thought, that 1915, with all of its horror, was really just the warm-up act.
It was the year the moral guardrails they came off the road completely.
And that's the thought I think we should leave everyone with. In just the second year of the war, you see the introduction of poison gas, aerial bombing of civilians, and unrestricted submarine warfare.
Once those lines were crossed in 1915, they could never be uncrossed.
So if all those rules of civilization were broken so early on, what was left to restrain them for the rest of the war?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing at all.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive into 1915. It's a heavy topic, but understanding the shift is so key to understanding the modern world. We will catch you on the next one.